Another system that is worth mentioning, and it's kind of category of its own that support our decision making, and it's considered really a branch of decision support systems, and its legacy name is Executive Support Systems, and usually we have a bunch of acronyms for these systems, and this is EIS. These are, again, interactive systems. At this point it's hard really to have a system that's static, doesn't allow some kind of a user interaction with it. But it's focused mostly on executives or executive layer of your management, so that they have easy access to internal, external data sets. It's done in such a way that's simple, intuitive, you don't need to be as technical, and the focus is primarily on the summary statistics, but it does give an executive kind of a complete picture with the drill down capabilities, so that if there is a question where you can look at some things a little bit deeper before they hand it off and say, okay, I need you to follow up now on this, that they can have some of that interactivity. So for this system, because it's strategic, it's really important, especially for this one, to have not only internal data, but to have that that environment, competitive environment in mind as well. Often, because these are executives, the type of stuff that they need for their decision making, they just cannot get lost in a lot of detail that pull many different sides, and having key critical success factors identified and focused on that in these reports and the visual displays is much more important for them. It tends to be rolled out through some kind of a digital dashboard. So dashboards are usually on a single page, single screen, so that you can have a complete picture of a certain question or sub-question, I guess, that requires a view where you don't scroll, because you can maybe lose, you won't remember what you saw before the scroll, so you don't see that complete picture. Now, a lot of people violate some of those rules of the dashboards, but technically that's how really it should be. These dashboards, they integrate number of sources, because not all data is always at the same time. They can be they should be refreshable, I guess, if that's the word, so that they're up to date, so that you can pull the data into it. They display a number of things like trends and the exceptions and potential problems. It's also important to mention it again that even though it's called Executive Information Systems, digital dashboards and kind of critical success factors, we live in the age where decision making is really being pushed down in a hierarchy. So everybody is expected to either support decision or make decision. It's not just executives, and you need to have a more complete understanding of a problem beyond just kind of very detailed records and transactions, where it becomes hard to actually consume that information. So even though they're called Executive Information Systems, these dashboards and a presentation layer of that is really being used by all levels of management, or even knowledge workers deeper than just management. So it again is a bit of a misnomer in today's environment. A lot of EIS systems are more than just EIS. They have decision support system capabilities and may have a GIS, like a mapping technology component to it, as you can see the map there. So while for the sake of this discussion, obviously think of it as an independent group of management support systems, but it's not as simple and straightforward in the real world. Another thing that I want to caution you about, that these dashboards, they really need to focus on showing data and not getting caught up in making it pretty for the sake of looking pretty, and really losing sight of the problem and the data. Unfortunately, what you see a lot, people spend a lot of times formatting things that actually makes it even harder to consume the data and support decision making. So you don't want to make that mistake. You want to use the systems that help you make decisions quicker and maybe even stop you from making those mistakes of formatting that's really just detrimental. Like, for example, using color when the color doesn't have a meaning, using a 3D presentation when there is no third dimension presented, So there's some rules there that we tackle in the information visualization field, but for the scope of this presentation, just kind of make it simple, make it elegant, and let the data speak as much as you can. So when you have these EIS or even graphical displays of data, they look at key performance indicators. They can look at some exception. They can flag them through the color or some kind of arrow or image. You can rank your top performers, your top customers, your bottom customers, your teams. You can compare. This is a big thing in data analysis. First thing that you should do is compare to what? Do something comparison versus just showing the number. You can compare while at the same time creating some trends and hopefully spotting them. That's really key. And then if you have certain hypotheses, you can go deeper. You can investigate, explore, see if you can defend maybe hypotheses that you have by going deeper into that analysis of EIS. Just like decision support systems, we need to talk about some of the reasons you would use it. Managers need tools to make data-driven decisions. So this is not just making this specific task and you have to make a decision, but overall exploration and analysis of the trends. And this is where EIS is really strong. You need often graphical representation to make the information easy to be consumed. If you only leave tables and records, it's really hard to roll it up and kind of summarize the results. Obviously, graphical display is not the solution always. It's very important to match it to the right problem. Executives can use it to share information amongst themselves across units. You push it down to managers to kind of monitor that efficiency of their decision and the effectiveness. These systems, though, even though they offer all these benefits and they're maybe even oversold in what they can do for the company, there is a resistance. Sometimes it just doesn't feel that you can defend the numbers. Why would you invest a few $100,000 or $1 million into a EIS system versus into research and development versus hiring more people? If the management does not understand the benefits, there will be obviously lack of commitment. We talked about that. If there is no commitment from management, the project will fail. Sometimes we don't know how to use these systems. We are used to Excel reports and we have all this detail and we just kind of pour them over into these more expensive systems that are graphical because we don't know what the objectives are, what information we need, so we just kind of recreate our old systems in it. And sometimes what we think the system should be is not linked really to what makes company tick and makes it better in terms of the profitability and meeting stakeholder needs. So if that's misaligned, you're focusing on the wrong things, wrong indicators, and then it's going to feel like you did not move the needle as far as company performance, that the EIS failed. But it's really the objectives that you buried into this EIS are the ones that are wrong. And sometimes it's just like I mentioned, these are soft benefits. How do you quantify the improvement in decision making by 10%, right? There are ways to do it. There are definitely ways to do it, because if you're making decisions, you know how much it costs you to make a wrong decision. So if you can come up with a baseline and had you had this information or that information and do this and now I had less errors in our decision, you should be able to defend your investment if you know what you're doing. It can take a long time to implement it. The vendors that maybe you used before, they come and go, you'll find out. So their support might be discontinued, especially if you didn't upgrade the system and they say we won't be supporting your version. They can be bought out, merger acquisition. Things happen all the time on the vendor space, so you gotta be careful who you choose. No matter how simple, and especially if you don't make it simple, senior executives sometimes lack computer proficiency. You will be surprised. It might be years since the last time they used a computer in an environment that requires them to show some technical skills because other people are doing it for them. So remember, this is their expectation is for them to use the system, and if they haven't done it in a while, it becomes a point of frustration. And you tell them, hey, you gotta learn, you gotta spend time, and they might be resistant to that. And the other part is sometimes, we, the programmers or project managers that are part of this implementation, if we don't think about our stakeholders, the project will fail because we won't understand the needs. And if we don't understand the executives that are going to use the system, we don't understand the inputs into their decisions, we're not going to do the right EIS system for them. It's guaranteed, right? We won't understand our stakeholder and the customer of it. So if the team doesn't spend enough time thinking about that, it's going to fail. So that will be another critical thing that needs to be avoided as you implement these systems. So that was a brief video about executive information systems, and we'll then follow up and talk about some other systems in our next videos.